at the Winthrop University Recreational and Research Complex, and I'm speaking with my good friend, Robert Carter. Robert, you are my go-to person for things about nature, because I just don't know anybody who enjoys it more.
Yeah, I'm into anything that involves nature. Doesn't matter what it is.
And we've done several things to get it, but you've recently called us and told us about something super exciting up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's fireflies. You know, and most people are used to seeing fireflies in their yard. It's what we call the Big Dipper, because it makes kind of a dipper shape when it fires up. But these are totally different. It's a totally type of display. It's really spectacular.
And some people call them lightning bugs.
Sometimes they're called lightning bugs, yeah. But they're not bugs, and they're not flies either. They're actually beetles, soft-winged beetles.
And we know, like I live in the middle of the state, and we know that people go to Congaree to see a synchronous display of fireflies there, and I'm sure it's quite fascinating. What we're going to see here is a very different phenomenon.
Yeah, they twinkle like they're on a Christmas tree. I mean, so all up in the tree. They don't stay close to the ground, all up in the tree. They're just flashing, and it looks like it's a Christmas tree display. And
is it to find a mate?
Yes, that's right. It is to find a mate. So the males are flying around up in the tree, and they're flashing, sending a specific signal, and it's species specific. And then the females are down on lower vegetation, and they're looking around. If a male comes close and they think it's the right one, they're going to flash and send it a message so that the male can come down and they can mate.
Okay. And then the males generally don't live very long in the adult phase. The female will feed and live a little longer in some cases.
In some species, yes, but in general, the adults live about a month.
Yeah.
But there are species of fireflies where the female continues to eat after she's laid her eggs, and they can live a long time. A lot of fireflies are in decline because part of it is pesticides, part of it is habitat destruction. The larvae take 1 to 2 years to develop, and they don't have wings, they're not flying, so if they're down in the leaf litter and you disturb that leaf litter, then you disturb their life pattern. So that's one problem, is the habitat destruction. And then you have light pollution. You've got to use bioluminescence to attract your mate. If there's too much light, well, you can't attract a mate.
Yeah, because although it looks very bright here, that's because there's no light out here.
That's right, because there's not much light down here, so it is really bright.
But under other circumstances, they might just miss each other completely.
Yeah, if you ever paid attention, if you're along busy streets, you don't see many fireflies because it just doesn't work for them.
Well, the ones that we're watching put on this beautiful display, tell us what we need to know about them specifically.
Okay, they're in a different genus, the Predatory genus, and they're a little bit different than the Photinus that is so common. And one big difference is they don't have a toxin in their body, because the Photinus that you see in your yard, which is so common, they have a toxin. So predators don't like to eat them.
They taste horrible.
They taste bad, yes. If you get enough of the toxin, it might make the animals really sick, but they figured out you stay away from that.
It's possible that the glowing, the bioluminescence, originally was to serve as a signal of, you don't want to come mess with me because I taste bad.
It could be because the eggs and the larvae both glow. So if you're glowing, then the predators know, hey, I better stay away from this.
And that uses energy, and so it's probably used for a purpose. Yeah,
I mean, there's no reason for an organism to do that, expend that energy, unless it has a purpose.
Now, the female is going to lay her eggs, and in groupings or singly, kind of depending, and it's amazing how long the larvae is the active phase.
Yeah, because the eggs will hatch in 2 to 3 weeks, and the eggs glow. It's really amazing. And then when the larvae hatches, it might be 1 year to 2 years before they mature into adults.
And then they pupate and emerge, and then the mating rituals.
Proceeds, yeah. And it's usually in May and June that you see the fireflies, because that's when the adults come out.
The ones that we're particularly interested in tonight, they don't have the toxin in them, do they?
No, for Predatory or Photurius, I'm sorry, they don't have that toxin. but they have a little trick that they use to get the toxin, and it's really amazing. The females that are down on the lower vegetation, oftentimes they know that there is a photinus close by which has the toxin, which is called loopy-boofigan. That's your word for the day.
That is a big word for the day.
Yeah, that's what the toxin's called. But they'll flash and imitate the flash of the photinus. Then the photinus male comes down to mate with Predatory, and then turns into a snack for that female. And she sequesters that toxin in her body. And so then she's protected and she can pass the protection on to her eggs. So it's really amazing.
That is just fascinating. And there are a lot, it's difficult to tell what you have in some of the species. Y'all are studying, it's not well understood.
No, fireflies are not well understood. And we've captured some, and Dr. Paula Mitchell from Winthrop has been working on identifying them, and she's pretty sure she's got it down to the right species, but all the literature says you can't get it to species unless you watch the flash pattern.
Since we know they are in decline, fortunately in this area on the edge of a swamp, and this recreational and research complex is probably going to be protected by Winthrop University, but we do know that habitat destruction is happening. What are some things that we can do in our own life to try to help the fireflies that are still here?
One thing is protect the wetlands, because they need moisture. So they like to be in the leaf litter and rotten logs and stuff like that, but they need the moisture.
Yes.
And they need clean water.
Oh, okay.
So we need to try to keep the pollutants out of the water. So, just protecting the area around ponds and streams to make sure you have these areas that have the leaf litter and the moisture. Try to cut down on the light. Try to avoid pesticides as much as possible. So there's a lot of things that we can do that will really help. Now, climate change, we're not sure what that is going to do to the fireflies. We'll just have to wait and see. I hope it doesn't do much.
We don't know what their temperature requirements and some of those things, if they hatch early, if there's real changes in the weather patterns and things might do to them.
Well, we know that does influence their life cycle, but we don't know what's going to happen. And they need the moisture, so as we suck more and more water out of the ground, the water table drops, and then that reduces their habitat also.
Robert, if you hadn't called, I would have never seen this exquisite display. I'm so glad that you are my eyes in nature and that you're letting us know about it.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I encourage other people to get out and explore the Carolinas, because you think you know fireflies because you see that one in your yard, but you really don't. There's so much more to learn.
And if people do start paying more attention to them, they may change some practices that will encourage them to increase in numbers. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes, everybody remembers fireflies when they were a child, and they want to keep seeing it, I hope.
I think they will after this.
I think so.